condensation clings to the oval window in tiny, trembling beads, holding the gray light of the Scottish afternoon in suspension. The massive engines, which have been a constant, roaring companion for hours, finally exhale a descending whine, spiraling down into silence. The vibration that has rattled through the floor and into the soles of my feet ceases, leaving a sudden, heavy stillness in the cabin. It is not an empty silence, but a thick, expectant pause, filled with the rustle of synthetic fabric and the soft, metallic snap of seatbelts, undoing in a wave from the front of the plane to the back. I remain seated for a moment, letting the stillness settle over me. The air in the cabin has grown warm and stale, but through the thick glass, the world outside looks cool and washed clean. The tarmac is wet, reflecting the slate-colored sky like a dark mirror. A single drop of water on the outside of the pane surrendered to gravity, tracing a jagged, clear path through the fog on the glass, revealing a sliver of green grass in the distance. This is the first greeting, not a grand landmark, but the quiet, persistent presence of water and stone. Easing upward, I retrieve my bag from the overhead compartment. It has a reassuring weight, a heavy block of familiarity in this new place. The handle is cool and smooth against my palm. I merge into the slow, shuffling river of passengers, moving toward the exit. We are a collective body now, moving with a singular, sleepy purpose. The air changes the moment I step across the threshold of the aircraft door. The jet bridge is cooler, smelling faintly of aviation fuel and damp concrete. My footsteps change pitch, moving from the hollow thud of the plane's carpeted aisle to the resonant, metallic clanking of the telescoping bridge. The ramp slopes gently upward. This is the beginning of the long, rhythmic transition. The corridor ahead stretches out, a tunnel of glass and steel designed to guide travelers from the sky to the ground. I adjust the strap of my bag on my shoulder, feeling the woven fabric bite gently into my coat, a grounding pressure that anchors me to the moment. The floor here is covered in a tight, industrial carpet, gray flecked with blue. It dampens the sound of the hundreds of feet moving in unison. There is a hush here, a reverence for the fatigue of travel. My shoes sink slightly into the fibers with each step, making a soft, crushing sound that is barely audible. The rhythm takes over. Left foot, right foot. The weight of the bag swings like a pendulum against my side. I reach a section of polished linoleum. The acoustic landscape shifts instantly. The soft shuffle is replaced by a crisp, rhythmic tapping. The wheels of rolling suitcases behind me begin to sing. A low, consistent hum that rises and falls as they traverse the seams in the floor. It sounds like a distant hive, a continuous drone of bearings and plastic rolling over hard ground. I focus on this sound, It is hypnotic, a white noise that smooths out the edges of my thoughts. Ahead, a long moving walkway stretches out, a black rubber ribbon gliding effortlessly forward. I step onto it. There is a slight lurch, a moment of rebalancing, and then the sensation of movement without effort. I set my bag down between my feet. The handrail, a thick loop of black rubber, moves under my hand, warm and smooth. I stand still, letting the machine carry me. The terminal flows past in a blur of muted colors. Glass walls reveal the misty silhouette of the control tower. Steel beams arch overhead like the ribs of a great whale. The walkway hums beneath my feet, a deep mechanical vibration that travels up through my legs, loosening the stiffness of the flight. I watch the floor plates disappear into the comb at the end of the belt, mesmerized by the endless looping cycle. Stepping off requires a small waking hop. The walk continues. The corridor widens. The ceiling lifts. The light here is artificial, a soft, diffuse white that casts no hard shadows. I am moving through a canyon of advertisements and directional signs, but I do not read them. They are just shapes and colors, part of the visual flow. My focus remains on the tactile experience of arrival. The floor changes again, back to carpet, then to tile. The temperature fluctuates, pockets of cool air drifting from unseen vents, brushing against my cheeks. I descend a long escalator. The metal steps unfold from the floor with a rhythmic clinking sound. I watch my feet settle on the grooved metal. The descent is slow, controlled. The world below rises to meet me. The bag feels heavier now, the strap pulling comfortably, a reminder of the gravity that is reclaiming me. At the bottom, the hall opens up. The sound of the space expands, the ceiling soaring high above. Voices are lost in the volume of air, turning into a soft, ambient murmur. I navigate through the winding ropes of the border control area. The movement here is stop and start, a slow swaying cadence. I shift my weight from one leg to the other. The floor is hard terrazzo, cool through the soles of my shoes. I listen to the rhythm of stamps hitting passports. A dull thud, a pause, the slide of paper. Thud, pause, slide. It is a slow, bureaucratic heartbeat. Finally, I am through. The baggage claim area is a cavern of rotating carousels. I do not stop here, moving past the circling belts where bags tumble and slide. The exit doors slide open with a pneumatic hiss, and the true air of Scotland rushes in to meet me. It is bracingly fresh. It smells of rain, wet earth, and salt. The humidity is immediate, clinging to my skin, cooling the travel heat that has built up over the hours. I step out onto the pavement. The sky is a vast, textured quilt of clouds, layer upon layer of gray and white, moving swiftly in the wind coming off the Firth of Forth. I walk toward the tram station. The ground here is paved with textured stones, and the sound of my footsteps becomes gritty and solid. The wind buffets my coat, flapping the hem against my legs. It feels cleansing, scrubbing away the stagnant air of the cabin. The tram arrives with a quiet, electric glide. It is a sleek vessel of white and red. The doors chime softly and slide apart. I step up into the carriage. It is clean and brightly lit. I find a seat near the window, swinging my bag onto the rack. The fabric of the seat is firm, covered in a geometric pattern of green and blue. I settle in, leaning my head against the cool glass of the window. The tram pulls away without a jolt, accelerating smoothly. The airport falls away. We glide past logistics warehouses and car rental lots, the industrial fringe of the city. Then the landscape opens up. Green fields rush by, blurred by speed, and the streaks of rain that have begun to paint the window. The grass is an impossible, vibrant green, bright even under the gray sky. The rhythm of the tram is different from the plane or the walkway. It is a swaying, rocking motion. The wheels sing on the tracks, a high, clear tone that dips and rises as we navigate curves. We pass rows of stone houses, their chimneys standing like sentinels. The stone is dark, soaked with rain, solid and enduring. We pause at stations, the doors opening to let in passengers who bring with them the scent of the damp afternoon. A wet umbrella creates a small pool of water on the floor, the surface trembling with the vibration of the engine. I watch the droplets merge and separate. The city begins to densify around us. The buildings grow taller, the spaces between them narrowing. We are entering the stone heart of Edinburgh. I disembark in the center of the town. The transition from the smooth tram to the city street is abrupt. The ground here is uneven, a patchwork of history. I step onto the pavement of Prince's Street. To my left, the new town, ordered and elegant. To my right, rising like a dark wave of stone, the old town creates a jagged silhouette against the clouds. The castle sits high upon its volcanic rock, brooding and magnificent, but I do not stare at it for long. My attention is on the ground, on the immediate path. I turn away from the main thoroughfare, seeking the quiet of the side streets. The sound of the city traffic fades, replaced by the intimate acoustics of narrow lanes. The wind is channeled here, whistling softly past the corners of sandstone buildings. My shoes find the cobblestones. This is the true texture of the city. The stones are rounded, slick with rain, polished by centuries of footsteps. Walking here requires a different kind of attention. I place my feet carefully. The surface is uneven, rising and falling in small, organic waves. My bag, which I am now carrying by the handle to avoid the rough ground, swings by my leg. I I begin to climb. The city is built on hills and ridges, and to reach my sanctuary, I must ascend. The slope is gentle at first, then steepens. I feel the effort in my calves, a good, burning heat that wakes up my muscles. The air is cooler here in the shadows of the tall tenements. The stone walls on either side are dark, stained with the soot of history and the damp of the climate. They loom over me, protective and heavy. I pass a narrow close, a tunnel through a building that leads to a hidden courtyard. A single lantern glows amber at the end of it, reflecting on the wet flagstones. The smell of malt and yeast drifts from a pub door that stands slightly ajar, a warm, bready scent that mingles with the cold rain. I reach the heavy wooden door of the guest house. It is painted a deep, glossy black, the brass number plate polished to a shine. I retrieve the key from my pocket. It is a real key, heavy and metal, not a plastic card. It slides into the lock with a satisfying friction. I turn it, feeling the tumblers shift and click into place. The latch gives way with a solid clunk. The door swings inward, revealing a hallway that smells of beeswax polish and dried lavender. The floor is wood, stripped and varnished, glowing in the soft light of the interior. I step inside and close the door against the wind. The silence of the house is immediate and profound. The roar of the wind, the hum of the tram, the drone of the plane, all of it is cut off, replaced by a stillness that feels ancient. I climb the final set of stairs. The banister is mahogany, cool and smooth under my hand. The steps are carpeted in a thick wool runner that absorbs every sound. I am moving slowly now, the fatigue of the journey finally catching up to me, wrapping around my shoulders like a heavy blanket. My room is on the second floor. I unlock the door and step inside. The room is a sanctuary of pale light and soft textures. The walls are painted a color that is somewhere between cream and the gray of a dove's wing. A tall sash window dominates the far wall, framed by heavy velvet curtains. I walk to it and look out. The view is of slate rooftops and chimney pots, a chaotic, charming landscape of stone. Beyond them, the clouds are racing, moving fast toward the sea. But in here, the air is still. I place my bag on the luggage rack. The sound of the zipper opening is loud in the quiet room. I do not unpack fully. I only take out what is necessary. The movements are slow, ritualistic. A sweater folded and placed on the chair. A book on the nightstand. The toiletries arranged on the bathroom shelf. I wash my face with warm water and soap. The towel is thick and white, rough enough to scrub away the grime of travel, soft enough to comfort. I feel the tension draining from my jaw, from the muscles around my eyes. The bed dominates the center of the room. It is high, covered in a duvet that looks like a cloud brought indoors. The linens are white, crisp, and unwrinkled. I turn back the cover. The sheets are cool to the touch, promising a specific kind of luxury, the luxury of a clean, empty surface. I sit on the edge of the mattress for a moment. The springs absorb my weight silently. I take off my shoes, peeling away the last layer of the journey. My feet touch the soft carpet. I swing my legs up and slide between the sheets. The cotton is cool against my skin, crisp and smooth. I pull the heavy duvet up to my chin. The weight of it is immediate and grounding. It presses me down into the mattress, holding me there. The pillow is firm, cradling my head. I adjust my position, seeking that perfect alignment where the body can fully let go. I let my eyes close. The darkness behind my eyelids is not empty. It is filled with the afterimages of the day. The gray sky, the green fields, the wet black stone. The sounds of the journey replay in a quiet loop. The hum of the walkway, the chime of the tram, the wind in the clothes. But they are distant now, fading echoes. I listen to the room. There is the faint ticking of a clock somewhere in the house, a steady, measured heartbeat. Outside, the wind gusts against the window, a soft rattle that only emphasizes the warmth and safety of the bed. The rain begins to tap against the glass, a gentle, irregular rhythm. It is a lullaby of water and glass. My breathing slows, matching the cadence of the rain. The tightness in my shoulders dissolves. The sensation of motion, the phantom vibration of the plane, finally fades away, replaced by the absolute stability of the bed. I am here. The journey is complete. I drift in the space between waking and sleeping, aware of the heavy stone walls protecting me, the cool air of the city outside, and the warmth trapped beneath the duvet. The anticipation of tomorrow, of the climb to the green peak and the view of the sea, is a soft, glowing thought, but it does not demand action. It can wait. For now, there is only the clean sheet, the dark room, and the rain. I let the rhythm of the falling water carry me down, layer by layer, into the deep, quiet dark. The morning air in Edinburgh possesses a weight that is distinct from anywhere else. It is not merely cold. It is a dense, clinging atmosphere that smells of ancient coal dust, wet slate, and the salt that drifts up from the Firth of Forth. I stand at the top of the ridge, the spine of volcanic rock that holds the old town above the rest of the world. Below me, the city falls away in steep layers of chimney pots and church spires. But up here, on the Royal Mile, the world is level, paved in stones the color of thunderclouds. To my left, the castle looms, a darker shadow against a gray sky, but my path pulls me downward today. The street is waking up. Delivery trucks idle with a low, rhythmic thrumming that vibrates through the soles of my boots. A shopkeeper sweeps the pavement in wide, semicircular strokes, the bristles hissing against the grid. I turn my back on the main thoroughfare, seeking the narrow, hidden veins of the city. The entrance to Lady Stairs Close is easy to miss. It is less a street and more a tunnel, a gap in the stone facade that promises passage to the lower levels of the ridge. I step under the archway. The sounds of the modern city, the engines, the distant voices, the sweep of the broom are instantly cut off, replaced by a hollow, resonant silence. Here, the light is dim, filtered through the high canyon walls of the tenements on either side. The ground beneath my feet changes. These are not the uniform, flat paving stones of the high street. These are the uneven, treacherous flags of history. I look down at the steps, leading further into the close. They are erratic. One step is shallow, barely an inch deep, while the next drops significantly, forcing a sudden shift in balance. These are the burglar steps. I navigate them slowly. My right foot descends, expecting a standard drop, but finds the stone sooner than anticipated. The impact travels up my shin, a solid, jarring reminder to pay attention. The next step is deep, a long stretch down that requires a bend of the knee. It is a physical language, a conversation between the architecture and the body. The design was intentional, a way to trip those who did not know the terrain in the dark, giving residents a moment of warning. I place a hand against the wall to steady myself. The stone is rough, pitted with centuries of weather. It feels damp, retaining the moisture of the night fog. I continue the descent. Short step, long step, deep drop, shallow plateau. The rhythm is broken and unpredictable, demanding total focus. It forces a slowness that feels respectful. You cannot rush through history here. You must negotiate with it. At the bottom of the flight, the close opens into a small courtyard. The tall, gray building of the Writers' Museum stands silent, its turrets reaching for the sliver of sky visible between the rooftops. I pause here, letting my breathing adjust to the stillness. The air is cooler in this well of stone, protected from the wind that scours the ridge above. There is a sense of enclosure, of being held in the palm of the city. I turn back toward the slope, finding a different route that feeds me back onto the lawn market. The transition is sudden. One moment, I am in the 17th century, surrounded by silence and shadow. The next, I am back in the stream of the present day. I drift downwards, letting gravity do the work. The Royal Mile is a river of cobblestones, and I am merely a leaf carried by the current. The buildings on either side rise like cliffs. They are impossibly high, 6 or 7 stories of blackened sandstone, their windows observing the street like hundreds of heavy-lidded eyes. I pass narrow openings, the mouths of other closes, Advocates' Close, Warriston's Close, each one a dark invitation. But I keep moving. The slope carries me past the frantic energy of the high street and down toward the Cannon Gate. Here the crowd thins. The frenetic energy of the upper mile dissipates. The buildings become slightly lower, the sky slightly wider. I am looking for a specific break in the wall, a garden hidden in plain sight. I find the sign for Dunbar's Close. It is modest, unpretentious. I step through the entrance tunnel, the stone walls damp and cool. The passage is long, dim, and smells faintly of moss. At the end, the stone gives way to green. This is the pocket garden, a recreation of a 17th century parterre, tucked away behind the bustling street. I step onto the gravel path. The sound of my boots changes from a hard clack to a soft, satisfying crunch. The city noise is gone again, muffled by the high stone walls that box the garden in on 3 sides. It is a secret room, possessing a ceiling made of gray clouds and walls made of living green. I find a wooden bench tucked into a corner, sheltered by the high, manicured hedge of a yew tree. I settle onto the wood. It is smooth, polished by the weather and the clothes of 1,000 other quiet travelers. Here begins the long wait, the stillness. I do not open my bag. I do not reach for my sketchbook yet. I simply sit. The gravel path stretches out before me in geometric lines, bordering rectangular beds of plants. The design is orderly, rational, a calm imposition of structure upon nature. Yet the plants themselves spill over the edges, softening the rigid lines. A breeze moves through the garden. It starts high up, in the tops of the trees that lean over the garden walls from the neighboring properties. I hear it before I feel it. It is a rushing sound, like water flowing over stones, a soft, cascading hiss that grows louder as the wind descends. The leaves of the large chestnut tree tremble. First, the upper canopy shakes, 1,000 individual leaves turning their paler undersides to the sky. Then the middle branches sway, heavy and slow. Finally, the breeze reaches the ground level, brushing against my face with a touch that is cool and damp. The yew hedges absorb the wind. They do not rustle, they whisper. It is a dense, fibrous sound. I watch the way the light changes as the clouds shift above. The garden is in shadow. Then a brief, pale illumination washes over the gravel, turning the gray stones to white. Then the shadow returns, a soft gray blanket being pulled back up. I focus on a single bush of jasmine near the wall. It is not in full riotous bloom, but the white stars are there, scattered among the dark, glossy green. The scent is subtle. It does not assault the nose. It waits. It requires the wind to carry it. I breathe in slowly. The air is filled with the smell of damp earth, that rich, dark odor of soil that has been turned and watered. Beneath that, the sharp, acidic tang of the box hedges. And then, floating on top like a delicate melody, the sweet, heavy perfume of the jasmine. It is a scent that belongs to another time. It is heavy and indolent. I close my eyes and let the smell ground me. I listen to the rhythm of the garden. There is a bird somewhere in the ivy that clings to the east wall. It chirps a sharp staccato sound. 3 notes. A pause. 3 notes. A pause. It is keeping time. I sync my breathing to it. Inhale for 3 notes. Hold for the pause. Exhale for 3 notes. The gravel path is a study in texture. I open my eyes and look at the ground near my feet. There are gray stones, smooth and rounded. There are jagged chips of white quartz. There are fragments of red sandstone. A small brown leaf skitters across the surface. It moves in fits and starts, pushed by invisible currents of air. It scrapes against the pebbles, a tiny, dry sound that is barely audible. Scratch, stop, scratch, stop. I watch the leaf for a long time. It gets caught on a larger stone, flutters its edges as if trying to fly, then settles. My hands rest on my knees. I can feel the fabric of my trousers, the warmth of my own palms. The cold of the bench seeps slowly through my coat, but it is not unpleasant. It is a grounding cold. It reminds me that the earth is beneath me, solid and unmoving. The garden is a vessel for time. Minutes drift by, uncounted. There is no clock here, only the movement of the light and the growth of the shadows. The shadows of the yew hedges stretch out across the gravel, long dark fingers reaching for the center of the garden. They move imperceptibly. If I stare directly at them, they are still. If I look away and look back, they have advanced. I listen to the distant hum of the city. It is a low drone, a backdrop that highlights the silence here. Occasionally, a siren wails high and thin, miles away. It does not disturb the peace. It only emphasizes the separation. I am apart from that world. I am in the valley of the garden. A raindrop falls, then another. They strike the gravel with a heavy, singular tap. The rhythm accelerates, but only slightly. It is not a storm. It is a gentle misting, a weeping of the sky. I watch the stones darken as they get wet. The gray turns to black. The red sandstone turns to a deep russet. The white quartz begins to shine like glass. The smell of the earth intensifies. The moisture unlocks the soil. The scent of the jasmine becomes heavier, pressed down by the damp air. It is intoxicating. I breathe it in, letting it fill my lungs, letting it displace the dust of the street. I sit, I breathe, I watch the rain speckle the sleeve of my coat. I count the drops as they hit a single broad leaf of a hosta plant near my foot. 1, 2, 3. They pool together, the water tension holding them in a shimmering bead of mercury. The bead grows heavy. It trembles. It slides to the edge of the leaf and falls, vanishing into the dark soil below. The leaf springs back up, relieved of the weight, bouncing gently. I watch it settle. I wait for the next drop. This is the work of the traveler today. Not to conquer the hill, but to witness the leaf, to be as still as the stone wall, to let the quiet seep into the bones. Eventually, the chill begins to assert itself. It is time to move, to generate heat again. I stand up slowly. My joints feel stiff, but my mind is clear, washed clean by the silence and the scent of flowers. I adjust my bag on my shoulder. I take one last look at the garden, memorizing the geometry of the hedges and the chaotic grace of the ivy. I walk back down the gravel path. Crunch, crunch, crunch. The sound is louder now, or perhaps my hearing has just become more acute. I pass through the stone tunnel and emerge back onto the cannon gate. The light has changed. The afternoon is wearing on, and the sun has dipped lower, casting longer shadows down the length of the Royal Mile. I continue my descent, walking east. The buildings here are different. They are less imposing than the towering tenements of the Upper Mile, more domestic, yet still built of that same enduring stone. I am looking for white horse clothes. It sits near the very bottom of the mile, close to the palace, a place where the city used to end. I find the entrance on the left. It is wide, a low archway that feels like the entrance to a stable yard, which, in a way, it once was. I step through into the courtyard. The sudden brightness is startling. Unlike the dark, soot-stained stone of the rest of the city, the buildings here are whitewashed. They glow in the flat afternoon light. It feels like a stage set, perfectly preserved. 2 flights of stone stairs curve up the sides of the buildings, meeting on a balcony. The roofs are step-gabled, jagged lines that cut into the sky like the teeth of a saw. I move to the center of the courtyard. It is empty. The tourists have not found this corner yet, or perhaps they have already left. I find a dry spot on a low stone wall and sit. Now I reach for my bag. The leather is cool to the touch. I slide the zipper open, a long, rasping sound, and pull out my sketchbook and a charcoal pencil. I turn to a fresh page. The paper is thick, creamy, with a slight tooth that catches the charcoal. I look at the building in front of me. I do not try to draw the whole thing. I focus on the interplay of light and structure. I start with the stairs. They are the focal point. I make a light mark on the paper, establishing the angle of the rise. The charcoal whispers against the page. I draw the vertical line of the first step, then the horizontal, then the vertical. whitewash creates a high-contrast canvas for the shadows. The sun is behind the building to my right, casting the stairwell into a sharp relief. The shadow is not gray. It is a deep, cool blue where the white wall reflects the sky. I press harder with the charcoal, darkening the area under the stairs. I sketch the windows. They are small, dark squares set deep into the thick walls. I do not draw the glass. I draw the darkness inside them. My hand moves in a steady rhythm. Look, measure, mark. Look, measure, mark. I focus on the texture of the whitewash. It is not perfectly smooth. It is bumpy, layered over rough stone. I use the side of the charcoal stick, rubbing it gently across the paper to create a graininess that mimics the wall. The sound is softer now, a broad, sweeping friction. I lose track of the broader city. There is only the white wall, the black shadow, and the gray page. I trace the line of the crow-stepped gables. Up across, up across. They look like a staircase to the sky. I add the chimney pots, slightly crooked, leaning together like old friends gossiping. The air in the courtyard is still. The whitewashed walls reflect the light, creating a soft, diffuse glow that is easy on the eyes. I feel the calmness of the geometry, the triangle of the gable, the rectangle of the window, the curve of the arch. It is a soothing puzzle to solve with graphite and paper. I shade the area under the eaves. The charcoal crumbles slightly, leaving a fine dust on the page. I blow it away. A gray cloud vanishes into the air. I work on the foreground. The cobblestones here are rounded, polished. I draw them as a series of interlocking circles, fading out at the edges of the page. I do not need to finish the drawing. I need to capture the feeling of the light. The shadows are lengthening. The sharp line that divided the sunlit wall from the shaded corner is creeping upward. The white is turning to a soft violet as the day begins to fail. The air grows colder, sharper. The smell of the evening fires begins to drift on the wind, wood smoke, and coal. A scent that has defined this city for 1,000 years. I put the charcoal down. My fingers are stained black. I wipe them on a cloth from my bag, but the gray smudge remains, a souvenir of the stone. I look at the drawing. It is rough, imperfect, but it holds the weight of the shadows. It holds the silence of the white walls. I close the sketchbook. The pages press together with a soft thud. I slide it back into the bag and fasten the zipper. I remain sitting for a moment longer. The courtyard is dimming now. The glowing white has dulled to the color of bone. The windows of the houses are beginning to glow with electric light, warm yellow squares appearing one by one against the gathering dusk. I stand up, my knees cracking softly in the quiet. I shoulder my bag. I do not rush to the exit. I walk a slow circle around the courtyard, touching the rough texture of the whitewash, feeling the cold radiating from the stone. I step back out through the archway. The Royal Mile is different now. The tourists have thinned out. The delivery trucks are gone. The street lamps have flickered to life, casting pools of amber light on the cobblestones. The mist is returning, rolling down from the castle, softening the edges of the buildings, blurring the spire of the Tron Kirk in the distance. I turn downhill, letting the slope guide me. I am not going back up to the heights tonight. I am drifting toward the foot of the mile, toward the open space of the park and the dark mass of the hill that waits for tomorrow. My steps are slow. The rhythm of the walking takes over again. Heel toe, heel toe. The sound of my boots is a steady heartbeat on the pavement. The city is settling down. The stone is exhaling the heat of the day. The air is still and heavy, wrapping around me like a blanket. I let my eyes lose focus, watching the streetlights blur into streaks of gold. The world feels soft. The walking feels effortless, a gentle glide into the evening. A thought forms, simple and unhurried, about the tea I will brew when I finally stop. But it drifts away before I can finish it, dissolving into the gray mist. The morning light in the new town is different from the light in the old. It does not struggle to find its way down narrow, winding closes, or fight through layers of medieval stone. Here, the light pours freely into the wide Georgian streets. It floods the orderly grid of squares and crescents, reflecting off the pale sandstone facades that stand in polite, uniform rows. I step out into this expansive brightness. The air is cool, carrying that distinct northern crispness that wakes the lungs before the mind has fully roused. My boots strike the pavement with a solid, rhythmic sound. There is a geometry to this part of the city that invites a steady pace. The iron railings, painted a deep, glossy black, run in parallel lines alongside the street, guarding the sunken gardens of the basement flats. Ahead, the horizon opens up where the buildings end and the gardens of Prince's Street begin. But before the gardens, rising like a dark interruption against the pale sky, stands the silhouette of the Scott Monument. It dominates the view, a towering spire of Victorian ambition. From a distance, it looks like a single, solid needle. But as I draw closer, the complexity of the structure reveals itself. It is a Gothic rocket, poised for a launch that never happened, grounded by its own immense weight. The stone is not the honey-colored sandstone of the surrounding buildings. It is dark, stained by decades of coal smoke from a bygone era, wearing its history like a coat of soot. I approach the base. The scale of it forces my head back. The structure is a cascade of arches, pinnacles, and niches, narrowing as it climbs 200 feet into the air. It feels organic, almost like a stalagmite that has erupted from the pavement, carved by wind and rain rather than chisels. The texture of the stone is rough and pitted. I run a hand along the low wall surrounding it. The grit of the city is embedded in the surface. It is a monument to a writer, yet it feels more like a cathedral condensed into a single spire. 64 statues of characters from his books hide in the crevices. Small stone figures witnessing the passing traffic of the modern world. I do not climb it today. It is enough to stand in its shadow, feeling the sheer vertical pull of it. It anchors the street, a heavy, dark counterweight to the open air of the gardens behind it. Leaving the dark spire behind, I cross toward the green valley that separates the new town from the old. But instead of climbing up toward the castle, I turn west. My path leads away from the center, aiming for the quiet vein of water that runs beneath the city's foundations. The transition is gradual. The wide avenues narrow into sloping streets. The noise of buses and trams begins to recede, replaced by the sound of wind moving through high branches. I find the entrance to the walkway, a small path that dips down, slipping beneath the road level, descending into the gorge of the Water of Leith. The city vanishes. It does not fade. It simply disappears behind a curtain of green. The temperature drops a few degrees as the canopy of trees closes overhead. The air here is damp and smells of wet earth, river silt, and the green scent of wild garlic. Beside me, the river flows. It is not a wide river, nor is it particularly deep, but it moves with a steady, muscular current. The water is the color of tea, dark and rich, churning over stones and swirling in small, quiet eddies near the bank. I settle into the walk. This is the valley. For the next long while, there is only the path and the water. The ground beneath my boots is a mixture of packed earth and fine gravel. It gives slightly with each step, a soft, yielding surface that absorbs the impact of walking. The rhythm sets in. Left foot, right foot. The crunch of gravel. The scuff of a boot on a protruding root. The river is a constant companion on the left. Sometimes it is close enough to touch, lapping against the reinforced bank. Other times, the path rises, and the water becomes a dark ribbon winding through the gorge below. The sound of it changes constantly. Where the bed is flat and sandy, the river is silent, a sliding sheet of glass reflecting the overhanging branches. Where the bed is rocky, the water sings, a low, gargling rush that fills the ears and drowns out any lingering hum from the city above. I walk through tunnels of green. The leaves are thick, filtering the sunlight into patches of shifting gold on the path. Ferns unroll their fronds on the steep banks, clinging to the soil in desperate, verdant clusters. Moss covers everything that stays still long enough It wraps around the trunks of the ancient trees, turning them into soft, velvet pillars. It coats the stones in the river, softening their jagged edges. There is no need to look at a map. The river dictates the direction. I simply follow the flow upstream, moving against the current. The act of walking becomes hypnotic. My breathing aligns with the pace of my stride. In for 3 steps, out for 3 steps. The visual field is filled with textures of nature. The bark of a beech tree, smooth and gray like elephant skin. The rough, fissured surface of an oak. The intricate, lace-like pattern of the canopy against the sky. Occasionally, a wooden bridge spans the water, the timber weathered to a silver gray, blending perfectly with the surroundings. I pause for a moment on one of these bridges, leaning against the railing. I look down into the water. It is mesmerizing. Bubbles form in the wake of a submerged stone, drifting downstream before popping and vanishing. Long strands of river weed wave in the current, combing the water like green hair. A duck drifts past, fighting the flow with lazy kicks, holding its position in the stream before letting the current take it. The path continues. I step off the wood and back onto the earth. The sensory input remains simple and consistent. The smell of damp leaves, the cool touch of the air on my face, the sound of water moving over stone. There are no landmarks here to mark the time, only the bend of the river and the changing angle of the light. This is a corridor of peace. It feels as though I am walking through a secret passage, a hidden world that exists parallel to the busy streets above, but never touches them. The isolation is comforting. It wraps around me like a heavy blanket. The worries of schedules and destinations dissolve in the repetition of movement. Step, breath, river. Step, breath, river. The path curves gently, following the natural meander of the water. Sometimes the gorge walls are high, sheer cliffs of sandstone that loom over the path, dripping with moisture. Other times, the banks are low and grassy, inviting the eye to wander into the dense undergrowth. I pass a small weir, a man-made waterfall where the river steps down a few feet. The sound amplifies, a white noise roar that cleanses the mind. The water tumbles over the edge, churning into white foam at the bottom before smoothing out again and continuing its journey to the sea. I keep walking. The physical sensation of movement is grounding. My legs feel the slight incline as the path rises, the muscles working in a steady, comfortable cadence. My arms swing loosely at my sides. There is no rush. The river has been flowing here for thousands of years. It does not hurry, and neither do I. Gradually, the dense greenery begins to thin. The gorge widens. The sound of the water softens as the river deepens. Stone walls begin to appear on the opposite bank, rising directly out of the water. I have arrived at Dean Village. It emerges from the trees like a settlement from a fairy tale. The architecture here is different from the grand Georgian lines of the new town. It is older, more intimate. The buildings are piled on top of one another, hugging the steep banks of the river. They are constructed of warm, yellow stone and topped with red pantile roofs that glow in the afternoon sun. I slow my pace, letting the atmosphere of the village settle over me. This was once the center of the milling industry, where grain was ground by the power of the river. The air still feels heavy with that history, a quiet, industrious memory. I cross a narrow bridge, the iron railings cold under my hand. The view from the center of the bridge is a postcard of tranquility. The buildings lean over the water, their reflection shimmering in the slow-moving current. Flower boxes overflow with blooms, adding splashes of pink and purple to the palette of stone and water. I make my way toward the heart of the village, looking for a specific detail. I find it on the side of an old granary building. It is a stone carving, set high into the wall, bearing the tools of the trade. 2 baker's peels, crossed like swords, and a bundle of wheat. Above the symbols, carved in a script that has been softened by centuries of rain, is the inscription, "God bless the Baxters of Edinburgh." The letters are worn, their sharp edges rounded off by time, but the message remains clear. I stand below it, tracing the shapes with my eyes. Baxters is an old Scots word for bakers. It is a simple blessing, etched in stone, asking for favor upon the people who made the bread. The texture of the wall around the inscription is fascinating. The stones are uneven, held together by thick lines of mortar. Some blocks are dark with age, others are pale, where the outer layer has flaked away. It is a patchwork of history, a vertical map of the passing years. I imagine the dust of flour that must have once coated this street, the smell of yeast and baking bread that would have mingled with the river damp. Now there is only the scent of the river and the quiet hum of a residential afternoon. Leaving the inscription, I follow the steep cobblestone road that winds up and out of the valley floor. The climb is short but sharp, pulling me out of the gorge and back toward the level of the city. But I am not returning to the streets just yet. At the top of the hill, hidden behind high stone walls, lies the Dean's Cemetery. I push open the heavy iron gate. It swings inward with a well-oiled silence. Inside, the world changes again. If the river walk was a corridor of nature, this is a gallery of stillness. It does not feel like a place of death, but rather a garden of memory. The grass is manicured, a vibrant, healthy green. The paths are wide and swept clean. I walk slowly along the main avenue. The monuments here are elaborate, testament to the wealth and status of the Victorian residents who rest here. There are obelisks of polished red granite, Celtic crosses covered in intricate knotwork, and marble angels with heads bowed in eternal contemplation. But it is the trees that command the space. They are immense, ancient weeping beeches and willows that have stood here since the cemetery was laid out. Their branches are heavy, sweeping down to touch the ground, creating enclosed tents of shadow and privacy. I step off the path and onto the soft turf, approaching one of the great trees. It is a weeping beech, its trunk vast and gnarled, looking like a bundle of thick ropes twisted together. The bark is smooth and cool to the touch, silver gray in the filtered light. I duck under the canopy. Inside, the light is dim and green. The rest of the cemetery disappears, blocked out by the curtain of leaves. It is a room made of foliage. The air here is still, protected from the breeze that moves the upper branches. This is where the whispering happens. The wind moves through the thousands of leaves, creating a sound that is distinct to this species of tree. It is not a rustle. It is a soft, continuous sibilance. Hush, hush, hush. It sounds like a long exhale, a collective breath being released by the tree itself. I stand near the trunk, listening. The sound is layered. There is the high, dry sound of the leaves brushing against each other, and beneath that, the deeper creak of the heavy branches swaying slightly in the wind. It is a lullaby, ancient and mindless. Around me, the headstones are weathered. Lichen grows in circular patches on the granite, bright orange and pale green. I read a few names, whispering them softly to see how they feel in the air. A doctor, a botanist, a captain of a ship that sailed to India. Their stories are reduced to dates and epitaphs. But here, under the whispering tree, they feel present, not as ghosts, but as a sense of weight, a density in the air. The light begins to change. The sun is dipping lower, casting long, stretching shadows across the grass. The stone monuments catch the golden hour light, glowing warmly against the darkening green of the trees. A marble angel, previously white and stark, now looks soft, her wings tinged with amber. I leave the shelter of the tree and walk to the western edge of the cemetery. From here, I can look back down toward the river valley, though the water is hidden by the trees. The sky is turning a pale, bruised purple, streaked with thin clouds. The air grows cooler. The dampness of the evening begins to rise from the ground, bringing with it the scent of wet stone and pine. The birds are settling down for the night. A blackbird sings a final, flute-like melody from the top of a headstone. A clear, piercing sound that rings out in the quiet. Then silence. I find a bench near the wall and sit. The stone of the wall radiates the last warmth of the day against my back. My legs feel the pleasant heaviness of the miles walked. rhythm of the river path still echoes in my body, the sensation of forward motion lingering even when I am still. I watch the colors fade. The gold turns to bronze, the bronze to gray. The details of the inscriptions on the graves become harder to read, blurring into the stone. The Gothic rocket of the Scott Monument is miles away now, a different world. The milling village is below, silent by the rushing water. Here, there is only the slow darkening of the sky and the silhouette of the whispering trees against the twilight. I close my eyes for a moment, listening to the wind in the leaves one last time. It sounds like the sea, far away and steady. The day does not end with a sharp stop. It simply dissolves, the light unraveling thread by thread, until there is only the soft, gray weight of the evening settling over the world. The city of Edinburgh is still dreaming under a blanket of cobalt blue. It is that quiet, suspended hour before the true dawn, where the streetlights have lost their authority, but the sun has not yet claimed the sky. The air is cool, carrying the specific, damp freshness of stone that has rested all night in the mist. I stand at the edge of Holyrood Park, looking up. Before me, the great dark mass of Arthur's Seat rises against the lightening sky. It is a sleeping giant, a dormant shadow of ancient earth that dominates the landscape. There is no noise here, only the soft brush of my jacket against my side, and the distant, rhythmic hum of a city slowly waking up miles away. I begin the ascent. The path is steep from the very start, a ribbon of packed earth and gravel that winds its way through the gorse. Under my boots, the ground feels solid, unyielding. The grass on either side is heavy with dew, bowed low in silver arches. Every step sends a tiny vibration up through my soles, a reminder of the density of this place. This is not merely a hill. It is the heavy, basalt bone of the earth jutting upward. Breathing settles into a steady cadence. In for 2 steps, out for 2 steps. The air is crisp, filling my lungs with a clean, sharp chill that wakes the senses without startling them. As the elevation increases, the smell of the damp earth mixes with the faint, salty tang of the distant sea. The city below begins to flatten. The intricate, chaotic weave of the old town, the orderly grid of the new town, and the sprawling suburbs all compress into a map of grays and browns. Chimney pots stand in uniform rows like soldiers. Church spires pierce the low-hanging mist. But up here, there is only the rock and the wind. The wind becomes a character in the story now. It does not gust, it flows. It presses against my chest, a constant, firm resistance that makes the act of climbing feel like swimming through a heavy current. I lean into it. My legs find a rhythm, the muscles warming, the steady lift and place of each boot becoming a meditation. The terrain changes, as the path curves around the shoulder of the hill. The grass gives way to exposed rock, polished smooth by centuries of rain and thousands of footsteps. I place a hand on a large outcrop to steady myself. The stone is cold, rough like coarse sandpaper, yet slick with the morning moisture. It feels permanent. It feels anchored to the core of the world. Reaching the summit is not a sudden conquest, but a gradual arrival. The path narrows, climbing over jagged steps of stone until there is simply nowhere left to climb. I find a place to sit on the highest ridge, a natural bench worn into the volcanic rock. Here, the world opens up. To the north, the Firth of Forth is a band of hammered steel, gray and shimmering. The water is vast, stretching out to meet the horizon, where the sky is just beginning to bruise with purple and gold. I settle in. I let my breathing slow down, matching the stillness of the stone beneath me. For a long time, there is nothing but the act of watching. The light changes by degrees, imperceptible moment to moment, yet profound in its shift. A pale lemon glow bleeds upward from the horizon, diluting the blue of the night. It touches the water first, turning the steel gray into a soft, milky silver. Clouds drift across the vast expanse. They are not the fluffy, white cumulus of a summer afternoon, but long, striated bands of stratus, stretched thin by the upper winds. They move with a slow, deliberate grace, casting faint shadows that slide across the water below. I watch one particular cloud, a wisp of gray vapor, as it travels from the left side of my vision to the right. It takes minutes. It reshapes itself as it moves, elongating, thinning, until it dissolves into the brightening air. My gaze drops to the city. From this height, the movement of Edinburgh is hypnotic. Tiny cars move along the arteries of the roads, silent specks of red and white light. They start and stop, flowing like liquid through the grid. A train snakes its way along the coast, a silver worm gliding without a sound. It is a silent film of civilization, played out for an audience of one. I close my eyes for a moment, listening. The wind rushes past my ears, a continuous hollow roar that drowns out all other thoughts. It is a white noise, a static that cleanses the mind. Beneath the wind, if I listen closely, I can hear the faint cry of a skylark, high above, invisible in the dawn. Opening my eyes again, the sun has broken the horizon. It does not burst forth, it spills. A line of liquid gold ignites the edge of the sea. The light hits the wet roofs of the city below, turning the slate tiles into mirrors. The wet grass around me sparkles, thousands of tiny prisms catching the fire of the morning. I remain here, anchored to the rock. The cold of the stone seeps through my clothes, but it is a grounding sensation, connecting me to the hill. I watch the shadows retreat from the valleys of the park, shrinking back as the light pours in, the distinct green of the slopes becomes vibrant, shaking off the gray of dawn. This is the valley of the morning, a space of time where there is no agenda, no destination, only the presence of the light and the wind. I watch the water of the Firth of Forth ripple. Even from this distance, the texture is visible, a rough skin on the surface of the sea. I count the ships anchored in the distance. 1, 2, 3, tiny silhouettes waiting for the tide. I watch the grass near my boot. It trembles in the wind, bending flat and then springing back over and over. A resilient dance. The brown stalks of last year's bracken mix with the fresh green shoots of spring. I trace the patterns of the lichen on the rock next to my hand. Circles of pale green and bright orange, mapping out territories on the stone that have existed for decades. The descent is a slow release of gravity. I leave the summit, letting the slope carry me down. The muscles in my legs adjust to the new demand, breaking against the pull of the earth. The city rises up to meet me, growing larger, louder, more distinct with every 100 feet I descend. The wind softens, losing its bite as I drop below the ridgeline. The roar fades to a breeze. The silence of the high place is replaced by the murmur of the waking town. The transition from the ancient hill to the coast is a blur of motion and gray light. The city passes by in a wash of stone tenements and green gardens. And then I am standing at the edge of the water again, miles to the west, at the village of Crammond. The air here is different. It is heavy with salt and iodine. The smell of the low tide is rich and organic. The wind is no longer the continuous stream of the summit, but a blustery, playful force that whips the surface of the water. I stand at the beginning of the causeway. The tide is out. The ocean has pulled back its blanket to reveal a secret path. A concrete spine stretching nearly a mile out into the Firth of Forth, leading to the green hump of Crammond Island. The path is lined with massive concrete pylons, distinct triangular teeth that rise from the sand. They are remnants of wartime defenses, now standing like ancient sentinels guarding the way. I step onto the causeway. The sensation underfoot is immediate and complex. The concrete is old, pitted and worn by decades of salt water. It is slick in places, covered in a thin film of green algae, but mostly it is a tapestry of marine life. This is the crunch. Every step is a texture. Sand has washed over the concrete, a fine, wet grit that grinds softly under my soles. But amidst the sand are thousands of shells, tiny white cockles, fragments of blue mussel shells, crushed barnacles. Crunch. I walk slowly, looking down. The sound is crisp, a brittle fracture that marks every footfall. It is a satisfying, granular sound, It speaks of the ocean's cycle, of things grown and discarded, ground down by the waves, and laid out here to dry in the brief window of the low tide. To my left and right, the pylons rise up. They are coated in barnacles up to the high tide mark, a sharp white crust that looks like frost. Below that line, they are dark with damp seaweed, bladderwrack that hangs in heavy, rubbery curtains. The smell is intense here, the pure, distilled essence of the ocean floor. I walk between the teeth of the barrier. The pylons create a corridor, narrowing the view so that I am focused only on the path ahead and the island waiting at the end. The causeway is a bridge between worlds, a temporary link that exists only by the grace of the moon and the tide. I reach a section where the water has pooled in the hollows of the concrete. I step carefully. The water is clear, magnifying the texture of the concrete beneath. Tiny swirls of sand dance in the miniature currents created by my boots. The walk is long. It is a mile of rhythm. Step crunch, step crunch. The mainland recedes behind me, the noise of the village fading until it is lost in the sound of the wind and the lapping water. The water is close now, on both sides of the causeway. It whispers against the sandbanks, a soft, sucking sound as it retreats further out. I stop halfway across. The isolation is absolute. I am standing on a strip of concrete in the middle of the sea. To the north, the kingdom of Fife is a green line on the horizon. To the east, the bridges span the water, delicate webs of steel. But here, there is only the wet concrete, the barnacle-encrusted teeth, and the sand. I continue the walk, the island growing larger. It is a tangle of green, overgrown and wild. The path rises up from the causeway, leaving the wet sand behind, and enters the dark tunnel of vegetation on the island. The ground changes instantly. The crunch of shells is replaced by the soft, muffled thud of earth and leaf litter. I walk up the slope, pushing through tall ferns that brush against my legs with a dry hiss. The island is a maze of paths, winding through the dense gorse and ivy. I find the perimeter path and begin to walk the circle of the island. This is the valley of the afternoon. I walk without a destination, simply following the edge of the land. The path is narrow, a thin line worn into the grass. To my right, the ground drops away to the rocky shore below. I can hear the waves slapping against the rocks, a rhythmic, percussive bass line to the rustling of the leaves. The walking becomes a trance. I watch my boots moving through the grass. The tips of the grass are turning gold, catching the afternoon light. I step over exposed roots, gnarled knuckles of wood that grip the thin soil. I duck under low-hanging branches of hawthorn, the bark rough and gray. I walk for what feels like hours. The rhythm of the island takes over. There is no need to think, no need to plan. there is only the next step. I watch the play of light on the water through the screen of the trees. It flickers, a strobe of silver and blue. I come to a clearing on the north side of the island. A concrete ruin sits here, another ghost of the war, now reclaimed by nature. Ivy cascades down its sides, softening the hard angles. I walk past it, my hand trailing along the cold, mossy wall. The texture is soft, damp, like velvet. I continue along the path. The wind is stronger on this side of the island, coming in straight off the North Sea. It rushes through the tall grass, creating waves of green that ripple up the hill. I stop and watch the grass move. It bows and recovers, bows and recovers. It is a sea on the land, mirroring the sea below. I find a spot where the trees break, revealing a view of the water stretching out to the horizon. I sit down on a dry patch of grass, my back against the trunk of a sycamore tree. The bark is smooth and cool. I sit and I watch. The tide has turned. Far out on the causeway, the water is beginning to creep back. It does not rush, it steals in. It fills the low spots first, surrounding the pylons, turning the sand into mud, then the mud into water. I watch the line of the water advance. It is a slow, relentless movement. The distinct crunch of the causeway is being silenced, inch by inch, buried under the rising gray quilt of the Firth. The light is changing again. The bright, sharp light of the afternoon is softening, deepening into the amber glow of early evening. The water reflects the sky, turning a deep, rich blue. I listen to the sounds of the island settling down. The birds are singing their evening chorus, a complex weaving of melodies from the dense brush. The wind has dropped slightly, becoming a gentle breeze that cools my face. I focus on a single piece of driftwood on the beach below. It is bleached white, shaped like a bone. I watch as the water reaches it. A small wave touches it, then retreats. Then another wave comes, surrounding it, lifting it slightly. The wood bobs, buoyant and light, and then settles back down as the water recedes. The rhythm is hypnotic. Lift, settle, lift, settle. I shift my gaze to the horizon. The line between sea and sky is blurring. A soft haze merging the two blues together. A tanker ship moves slowly across the line. A dark shape suspended in the ether. It moves so slowly, it seems stationary. Only its position relative to the clouds revealing its progress. I breathe in the salt air. It tastes clean, ancient. It is the taste of deep water and cold currents. My hands rest on the grass. I can feel the dampness of the earth beneath, a cool moisture that seeps up. I run my fingers through the blades of grass, feeling the coarse texture, the slight serration of the edges. The causeway is half gone now. The pylons are becoming islands of their own, their bases submerged. The path I walked is a memory, hidden beneath the waves. The connection to the mainland is dissolving, leaving the island floating free in the dusk. There is a profound peace in this separation. The world of roads and lights and schedules is on the other shore. Here, there is only the cycle of the tide and the turning of the earth. I watch a seagull glide overhead. It does not flap its wings. It simply rides the air currents, banking slightly to the left, then to the right. It is perfectly silent, a white shape against the deepening blue. The light begins to fade from the sky, draining away into the west. The amber turns to a bruised purple, then to a soft, dusty charcoal. The water darkens, becoming a mirror for the first stars that are beginning to prick the canopy above. I remain still, letting the dusk settle around me like a heavy coat. The air grows colder, but it is a comfortable cold, a signal of the day ending. The sound of the water seems to grow louder as the light fails, the rhythm of the waves becoming the dominant pulse of the world. The causeway is gone. The water has reclaimed the concrete, the sand, and the shells. The teeth of the pylons stand in the open sea, black shapes rising from the dark water. The island is adrift. I close my eyes, listening to the water lap against the rocks below. The sound is a steady, gentle wash. It cleanses the mind, smoothing out the thoughts, just as it smoothed the stones on the shore. The darkness is not empty. It is full of presence. The smell of the sea, the sound of the wind in the leaves, the feeling of the solid earth at my back. I breathe in slowly, filling my chest with the cool night air. I breathe out, letting the breath carry away the weight of the climb, the crunch of the path, the length of the day. The water holds the sky,